mendelspod.com, advancing life science research, connecting people and ideas.
Welcome to Mendel's Pod. We're in San Diego at the offices of Chempetitive Group, a life science marketing agency. Joining us is Michael Yared, the Director of Digital Strategy at Chempetitive. He's going to talk about trends in digital marketing for all you life science marketers out there.
Today's show is sponsored by Ingenuity iReport, the fastest and most accurate way to get biological meaning from your expression data. You can upload your data and get a free iReport analysis summary at www.ingenuity.com/getiReport.
Welcome, Michael.
Hello, how's it going?
So these days, is digital marketing different than marketing in general?
It's not. There's a lot that overlaps, but you have to kind of take traditional marketing and digital marketing and weigh the advantages of both before you get started.
Okay, so digital marketing is totally blooming and going nuts. How would you define digital marketing?
Really, anything that touches the web. That's kind of how our definition at the agency is. Whether it's content that's being produced for the internet, or whether it's a website or a microsite devoted to displaying that content. If it is touching the internet, then we define it as digital marketing.
Okay, so let's list some of those things in today's world.
There's a lot of tactics that go into play. There's email marketing, there is search marketing, display advertising, all the way up to list management and nurturing, and which includes a variety of different software packages. There's CRMs and making sure that you can maintain the process. There's marketing automation, that you've got a good, solid foundation. And I think there's a lot of little things along the way too that folks don't necessarily always resonate with, such as comment marketing. How do you go about leaving your footprint on other people's work and making sure that works as well?
Okay, so making comments on these sites like LinkedIn or somebody's own, some popular life science blog or biotech blog.
Absolutely. There's a lot of advantages to reaching out to individuals who are influencers. You don't always have to be talking to your customer. You can reach out to influencers of your customer and leave, positive attribution back to your company and make sure that, people really have a good understanding of what it is you do and, kind of getting that third-party reputation.
Okay, so this is what everybody's talking about today. So give us some really golden nuggets here.
Sure.
Something that we may not think about. What are some of the trends you're seeing in digital strategy?
Right now there is a big resurgence in display advertising. Display advertising has been around since, the early days of the internet, but capitalizing on it with the advantages that, marketers now have, such as being able to really track, who and when people are seeing your ads, and also being able to retarget advertisements to populations. That is a big one.
So you're saying people should advertise on Mendel's Pod?
Absolutely. Advertise often. But really any publisher, if the audience is right, you want to be advertising. Our goal whenever we're working with a client is understand where your audience or potential audience is hanging out and make sure that you're there. So whether it is, on a website like Mendel's Pod or, on a community board, you want to make sure that you're there and you have a presence and at least some share of the voice.
Mm-hmm. So there are advantages over like the print media. You can track the clicks. Get into some of the information that we can pick up, as a life science company.
Sure.
So
there's a lot in terms of data. I think the biggest approach that digital marketers have to take into account is the advantages that they have in terms of being able to decipher information quickly. So one of the things that we always recommend is building a dashboard that retains the information that you care about most. So you don't want to spend a lot of time looking at analytics if it's can help you or can kind of steer you down the wrong direction. You want to really focus on data that is going to be actionable and get you what you need. And there's a lot of different philosophies around it, but really defining what your goals are up front and kind of working backwards from there is going to give you a great head start.
Okay, so one of the trends is the online display advertising. So you're seeing more of that.
Absolutely. It's not just display advertising, but places where you probably wouldn't traditionally think to use display ads. right now we're moving a lot of customers to LinkedIn pretty aggressively. We have over the last, 2 quarters.
Suggesting that they should set up a LinkedIn page for their company. Is that what you mean?
But then in addition to that, actually using display advertisement on top of LinkedIn. Traditionally most people think of LinkedIn as a great, social network. There's a lot of B2B interactions going on, and you can make connections both from your company pages, if you're looking for, from an HR standpoint, or even from groups. But what we found that is, very interesting is being able to target people based on their interests, whether it's groups or their titles, and really getting a focused feel for the type of audience that you're looking for.
Tell us some of your clients here at Chempetitive, just so we get a feel.
We have a lot, really that just kind of range, that goes all across life sciences and, then some. So, we work with microscopy companies who are looking to both help sell instrumentation as well as, services around microscopy. We work with software companies that develop, large-scale solutions for, material safety data sheets. We work with sequencing companies, lab manufacturers, really kind of list goes on, but chemical companies, whatever it is, they all still ultimately have the same challenges. They're trying to get, heard on the internet, and so are all their competitors. So that's kind of like the one thing that unifies them.
So what's a common problem that they come to you with that unifies them? And maybe they don't know what the problem is until they talk to you.
I think a lot of times folks will come to us and, want to engage, in a certain tactic. And one of the ways that, we help diagnose, whether that is the right tactic or not is just really asking them the question, what is your business objective? What are you looking to do, not in the broad sense, but, specifically for this campaign? And, kind of going through that detailed process of making sure that, they are in agreement with what we're in agreement on in terms of what we're going to go out and do is a big first step. Once we have that, we can flush out, the rest of the marketing campaign. But it's really getting a good sense and feel for, what they're looking to do online and how we can help them do that.
Mm-hmm. And so has there been like a common kind of issue among life science companies that you've seen?
Yeah, really any of the companies we work with.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that they don't necessarily think is that, they're usually sitting on gold mines. They usually have a really good asset, and that is their, their own organic list that they've been, creating, over the years or even months that they've been around. And, one of the big advantages is taking that list and expanding on it. You usually have a good customer list or a good prospect list, but people are always coming and, looking to do new marketing, and they're not really engaging that list that they have. And if you take a step back and say, okay, well, how can I use this list? There's a lot of ways with, social networking and as well as, just good list management that you can really not just build a better asset that you have internally, but also connect with, the immediate connections from those lists.
Mm-hmm. So too often, I guess, companies are looking for the new leads.
Absolutely.
I think don't pay enough attention to what they already have.
I think, looking at what they have is something that unifies all of them. But at the same point, all of them are always looking for new leads, new business. And, we work with a lot of companies who, they sell big capital equipment. So they probably know all of the potential people who could even buy their equipment anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really about identifying, the needs and wants that they have and, making sure that we're in front of them. I think it goes back to, making sure that you are places where your potential client or customer hangs out.
Mm-hmm. Are there issues in online or digital marketing that are peculiar to the life science industry?
There are. Especially when you touch into, healthcare and especially pharmaceuticals, there's a lot of, laws or perceived laws that come into play that you have to kind of work around, especially when, you might be able to say something or you have to worry about a certain drug or characteristic of it. That ranges from search to email to display. If you go look at, some of the healthcare ads out there, you'll see, full banner ads that have a small portion that's dedicated to, a notice of all the things that drug, can or cannot do.
Mm-hmm.
And so you will see, instances where you kind of have to tiptoe around that. But, for the most part, I think it's, the companies that stand out are the ones that are, willing to stand out and ready to take those leaps. Nothing's worse than, trying to market something and, not being able to get past your own company. I think that's a challenge that a lot of the larger companies have, and, that's where they look to an agency, is to make sure that they can kind of break through their own process.
What do you mean by that? Get past their own company?
So, if you've got a lot of people with a lot of opinions, sometimes it's difficult for, everyone to be in agreement. And then when they are in agreement, it could be one lawyer who, shuts down the whole thing. And, there's definitely a place for that. But a lot of times, it's important to realize that, you're here, your goal is to market, a particular product or service. You want to make sure that you can get past, your internal marketing. Whatever creative ideas that you come up with in brainstorming sessions or riff sessions, you want to make sure that that actually sees the light of day. Because if it doesn't, you're spending a lot of time and money on, ideas, and it's never being executed.
Mm-hmm. So you work with companies who are marketing to scientists. So there's, they're life science companies, so they have, a certain product, and maybe, there's certain commonalities there,
Mm-hmm.
but they're also all selling to scientists.
Yes.
So I wonder, is there anything important to remember when you're presenting your product or service to scientists?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, discussion around that. I think more than anything, it's to remember that, scientists are people too. And just like, anybody that you come across, they act like people, talk like people. You can't categorize scientists as a particular group who thinks or feels one way, because they don't. We do a lot of research on that topic, and inevitably, yes, there's some characteristics and traits that you can kind of broadly suggest that apply to everyone, but there isn't. There isn't anything that you could use in a disadvantage to say, yes, all scientists act and feel this way, because
Mm-hmm.
they don't. You have to treat them individually,
Mm-hmm.
and realize that their needs are whatever their needs are at the moment, and that those needs can change.
Mm-hmm. Let's go back to some more trends that you're seeing
Sure.
these days with your particular, focus, which is
Absolutely.
the digital.
Right now I think search is still, one of the hottest things. It's been for a while, and, companies who know how to do it properly take advantage of it. They kind of, to some degree, will, use that as their base. They know they're going to get, a consistent amount of leads. They know they're going to spend a certain amount of money, whether it's on the paid side or organically. But, search is something that, everyone's, for the most part, involved in. I think it's very rare to come across companies who aren't, actively engaging search because they understand how valuable it is. Again, going back to display advertising, I think that's one where people are, they've been doing it because they've been doing it. They haven't necessarily built it in as part of a strategic plan. It's just, I advertise with this publication in print, so I'm also going to advertise with them digitally, or I advertise digitally because my competitors do. I think there's a lot of advantages and tools out there that, are starting to come about that are giving marketers an upper hand in terms of being able to strategically place ads and really getting a good understanding for how much value that brings.
Mm-hmm. Going back to search, is do you feel like search engine, or I guess it's called search engine marketing,
Sure.
is undervalued, is overvalued?
It really depends on the company. I mean, I think a lot of companies who do know that it's a strong tactic, I think they use it and they use it well. They're doing great.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's a company who, either isn't engaging with it, it's probably because they've had a bad experience with it, or they just don't really understand how to maximize the potential. So the big, differentiator with search is that you're really pulling intent. And to be able to have the intent of the person who's searching in mind and be able to know what that is ahead of time is such an advantage over, most anything. I mean, I think the closest thing you can relate it to would be email marketing, probably, because you knew at one point they were interested in it. But with search marketing, the intent is there and it's now. So, a lot of times it's great towards the end of the buying cycle when individuals are, looking for a solution immediately to either compare to something else, or, if they are ready to make an action. But, search works across the board. I mean, it's a very, very valuable tactic, and it's a reason why search engine companies do so well selling ads. They have that ability to be able to really lock into what somebody wants is a big one.
So let's say a company is getting most of their traffic from Google,
Mm-hmm.
say 80%.
Sure.
Is this a problem?
It's not really. The majority of companies that, we come across, they are. They're getting 80% plus of their traffic from search engines, and, the majority of that search engine traffic is coming from Google, whether they buy it or get it organically.
Uh-huh.
I think the key thing to remember is that, you want to, in some sense, Google proof your business where you can. If you were to
Google
lose,
proof.
yeah, if you were to lose half of your traffic from Google because they came up with an algorithm update, or your ads turned off, for whatever reason, that could be a huge hit to your bottom line. And so you got to realize that while it's here, it's now, and it's the predominant thing, it might not always be. So having a really valuable marketing strategy that kind of attacks the problem all over the place is something to certainly pay attention to.
So to have more sources of the traffic.
Absolutely.
Diversify.
Being cognizant of, first off, where your sources are coming from. Making sure you have the tracking in place, understanding the value of the content that you put out there, making sure you understand that you're building content for a reason, and that's to ultimately help people with their decisions, but to get them to your website or your presence anyway. I think that's a big one. Looking at other opportunities, yes, you can rank well for a result, or you can purchase that result, but you are also coming at a disadvantage in the sense that your recommendation is coming from a search engine, as opposed to if it was a third-party review, or if it was a very valued resource that was sending that referral traffic. You might have a much bigger advantage just psychologically when the person's coming in.
So when you use all these geeky terms,
Yep.
right? CRM, SEO, and all these things. SEO's been around for a while,
Sure.
but the new places things are headed, for instance, comment marketing. Do you find that your clients get overwhelmed by this?
I think if we were to necessarily just talk to them specifically in that direction, they may, but I think usually when we bring it up, it's because we're bringing it up for a purpose. So, again, we always try to start with the goal. If the business objective is to get more leads or to build awareness, that's kind of where we're starting, and then we'll figure out what the right tactics are. Certainly budget comes into play, and what they've done in the past comes into play, but more than anything, it's really what are they looking to do, and how can we get to that approach as quick as possible. I think to your question though, do people get intimidated with it, and sometimes don't understand it? Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, is there resistance against it when it might be really beneficial?
There definitely is resistance, at times, just because, internally someone has to champion this cause, to get it approved and to move forward with it. And if there's not a good enough education process up front to show how great it really is, it can be hard to, initially sell it to one person in the company, but then for them to go about and have all the information they need to sell it to everyone else. I think a good example of that is, content marketing in general, and it's such an interesting challenge. There's a lot of software that's coming out, some made by ex-Googlers, some made by, people who are, in the industry. But being able to take, a software program and have it, assist in some of the content development, it's always been, a scary challenge for a lot of people. And, they really have to see a really good case study or results to make sure that it's something that they can do or even really move forward with.
So let's summarize.
Sure.
What are three really important things that people should remember as they go forward with their own online or digital marketing?
I think first and foremost, make sure you're tracking what you're doing. You've got to be knowing what you're doing so that you know where to go next. If you have a good idea of where your traffic's coming from and how it's behaving, then you can also measure the outcomes. Well, then you're in a good sense to be able to say, okay, well, here's the gaps. These are what I need to fill, as opposed to just blanketing more messages out there. I think another thing is to, take a step back and say, of the marketing that I've been putting out there on the digital side, how effective is it, and how does it compare, to other tactics or objectives that I'm trying to reach? I think that's another big one, because the landscape does change, and while there's benefits to being a consistent marketer, you always have to take a look at is your marketing staying up to par in performance, or is it slowly dragging back down, and people have seen it and done that and now they're pulling back. I think the last thing would be to just keep an open mind for new events, new opportunities, trade shows, whatever it ends up being. Make sure that you're there and you're ready to market, and that you don't have a process that's slowing you down, because nothing's worse than thinking of the idea and then watching a competitor execute it, and then being too late to the game. So if there's opportunities and it's something that you want to take advantage of, the great thing about digital marketing is that You don't usually have to commit all in. You can test the waters, see if it works, and apply more marketing dollars if it does. That's one of the big advantages, and in addition, you can be able to track it, down to the penny.
Is there a magic number as far as when you suggest percentage of budgets to go towards digital marketing?
There's not. I mean, more than anything, I think a lot of companies are kind of understanding that digital marketing is where it's going, and they're putting more and more dollars there. Obviously, any digital campaign still has to have the foundation of a traditional campaign, which is good strategy, good messaging, good branding, good copy. All of that still applies, which a lot of those tactics are, objectives are really thought of as in the traditional sense. You have to have that. I mean, we work with copywriters who have backgrounds in, interactive marketing to kind of get the advantage there, but first and foremost, they're copywriters. They know what to say, they know how to speak, they know what, scientists and people who work at scientific companies are going to resonate with. So for us, that's the first step, is making sure that the messaging and branding and content and copy are all, consistent. And if that's the case, then, again, the tactics will usually unfold themselves.
Mm-hmm. And there'll be an emphasis on the digital?
Absolutely. I think there's a strong emphasis, not just now, but, going into the future. I mean, we see from places like Forrester Research and, even just B2B Magazine and all of our internal research that we do with surveys that, everybody's putting more and more budget towards digital marketing and specific tactics. And while those tactics may change, the overall scope of, digital marketing growing is, absolutely true. It's going to continue to grow. And, if you look at projections, now until like 2016, that's only 4 years away. It's, double and triple in some sense.
Were you always the geek? Did you start back in the MS-DOS days?
I did. I know MS-DOS very well. So started with a PC Junior and, worked my way up. Had a computer that had, 233 megahertz processor and very little RAM, and remember begging and pleading for something a little bit more powerful. But yeah, always been into computers, always had them, and that's how you learn, experimenting with stuff and breaking it and trying to fix it.
Michael Yared, he's the Director of Digital Strategy at Chempetitive Group. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Today's show is sponsored by Ingenuity iReport, the fastest and most accurate way to get biological meaning from your expression data. You can upload your data and get a free iReport analysis summary at www.ingenuity.com/get iReport.